Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive
Ooh, exciting.
into game design.
Mm-hmm.
And today,
Yes.
we are going to be taking a close look at a great article by Reactorcore called How to Grow as a Game Designer.
Excellent.
So, it's all about like those core principles that make games truly great.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm excited to dive into this one.
Me
That's
too.
it with you.
What I find really interesting is that
Yeah.
Reactorcore actually starts this journey
Okay.
by talking about modding,
Oh.
creating custom content for existing games.
Right.
And he starts off with this game called Soldot,
Mm-hmm.
which only allowed aesthetic changes,
Okay.
but then he discovers Cortex Command.
Cortex Command.
Exactly.
Like a modder's paradise.
Modder's Paradise.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You could go wild,
Yeah.
designing totally new characters,
Mhm.
vehicles, even gameplay systems.
Wow.
It's a great example of how a game can become
Yeah.
a platform for creative exploration.
For sure.
Yeah.
But even with all that freedom, like he still ran into some design roadblocks, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
With this whole cookie cutter content thing.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
this tendency to just replicate
Uh-huh.
what already exists.
Okay.
Think of like the classic weapon set.
Yeah.
Pistol,
Yeah.
SMG, shotgun.
Yep.
Rinse and repeat.
Right.
It's like a creative rut.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
And in Cortex Command, this manifested in faction mods, where modders would make new factions,
Yeah.
but with predictable weapons and units.
So instead of pushing boundaries, they were just kind of like rearranging the furniture, so to speak.
Exactly,
Got it.
precisely.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating is that this isn't limited to just modding communities.
Right.
We see this in the games industry as a whole,
Wow.
even with big studios.
Oh,
It's
interesting.
like sometimes everyone's playing it safe,
Yeah.
sticking to the same well-worn formulas.
It makes you wonder, is it a lack of talent or maybe a fear of straying too far from what's proven successful?
Well, Reactorcore argues that it's more about mindset.
Oh, okay.
He points to a roguelite genre tier list
Mm-hmm.
as an example, where most games end up clustered in the same predictable categories.
Oh, interesting.
And it raises the question, what would happen if developers were more willing to break the mold?
I like that, break the mold.
Mm-hmm.
So how does Reactorcore himself escape this trap?
Right.
Because he obviously goes on to do some amazing things in the game dev world.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
And his big break comes when he joins the Cortex Command development team officially.
Okay.
But at first he admits that his approach was still very instinctual.
Okay.
He was focused on building cool individual elements,
Mm-hmm.
but without a solid understanding of game design principles.
So he was kind of like decorating a cake before you've baked it.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so where does the shift happen?
Okay.
When does he realize he needs a more fundamental approach?
He has this aha moment
Uh-huh.
where he realizes he's been doing things backward.
Oh.
He uses this great analogy. Imagine designing a gun
Yeah.
by starting with the doorknob instead of the foundation of the house.
Oh.
He was fixated on individual elements,
Okay.
like guns,
Mm-hmm.
without considering the bigger picture.
So it's like he was making all these cool pieces,
Yeah.
but didn't have the blueprint to put them together cohesively.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
He started asking these deeper questions. Like, what's the purpose of this gun?
Uh-huh.
Who is using it?
Right.
What are the limitations
Yeah.
of the game world?
Yeah.
It's like he suddenly saw the interconnectedness of everything.
This reminds me of that Carl Sagan quote about needing to invent the universe to make an apple pie.
Oh, yeah.
It's about understanding the entire system
Exactly.
before you can create a part that truly fits.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Reactorcore has this epiphany
Yeah.
that everything builds
Mm-hmm.
upon what comes before it. And he starts thinking about the context, the environment, the mechanics, even the logistics involved
Wow.
in creating something as seemingly simple as a gun in a video game.
So this is where he starts prioritizing building that solid foundation he keeps talking about.
Precisely.
Okay.
Instead of diving headfirst into making content,
Mm-hmm.
he focuses on establishing the core rules of the game universe.
Right.
The feel he wants to evoke,
Hmm.
the mechanics that will drive player actions.
Okay.
He shifts his entire mindset.
It sounds like this requires a lot of upfront work.
Yeah.
Like, what are the actual benefits
Mhm.
of taking this approach?
Sure.
Is it worth the extra effort?
Reactorcore argues that it absolutely is.
Okay.
And he outlines several benefits. making content creation more efficient, increasing the game's longevity and replayability,
Okay.
reducing creative frustration, making balancing more intuitive,
Right.
and fostering greater creativity and innovation.
Okay. I'm starting to see the appeal. It's like having a blueprint versus just winging it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But can you give me a concrete example
Yeah.
of how building a solid foundation actually plays out in a game?
Okay, so think about a game like Civilization.
Okay.
The solid foundation is that core gameplay loop of exploring, expanding, exploiting, and exterminating.
Right. Yeah.
All the content from units to technologies is designed to support that framework.
Oh, that's a good point.
Or take a platformer like Super Mario Brothers.
Okay.
The foundation is that tight, responsive jump mechanic.
Yes.
Everything else is built around how that feels.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. It's about establishing that core experience before getting bogged down in details.
Exactly.
Okay.
And Reactorcore believes this leads to a more cohesive, engaging, and ultimately more successful game.
Yeah.
He even compares it to carrying buckets of water versus building a water pipeline.
Ooh, that's good.
The initial effort might be higher, but the long-term payoff is enormous.
So it's about working smarter, not harder.
Exactly.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
But building a solid foundation also requires a deep understanding of game design principles, right?
Right, and that's where Reactorcore's thirst for knowledge comes in.
Okay.
He doesn't just rely on his instincts anymore.
Yeah.
He starts actively seeking out information,
Okay.
even in seemingly unrelated fields,
Such as?
like engineering, logistics, and science.
So game design becomes a gateway to learning about the world around us.
Absolutely.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and he even embraces procrastination as a valuable part of this process.
Hold on, procrastination.
Yeah.
Isn't that usually seen as a bad thing?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
It's about giving your mind time to wander and make unexpected connections.
Huh.
Reactorcore argues that this kind of exploration can lead to truly innovative ideas.
Okay.
He gives an example of how studying real-world logistics systems helped him design a more believable and engaging resource management system for his game.
Oh, that's a good example.
Yeah.
So it's like cross-pollinating ideas from different fields to create something truly unique.
Yeah, and this highlights a really important point.
Yeah.
Game design isn't just a technical skill.
Okay.
It's about creativity, problem-solving, storytelling,
Right.
and even understanding human psychology.
Yeah.
It's about creating experiences that engage players on multiple levels.
It sounds like he's arguing for a much more holistic view of game design than what many people might imagine.
Absolutely. He's saying that it's not just about making a fun game. It's about crafting a complete experience that draws players in and leaves a lasting impact.
I'm curious to hear more about how he puts this philosophy into practice.
Well, his perspective doesn't just stop at the game itself.
Okay.
He starts to see elements like marketing, community management, even things like the game's packaging and folder.
Wait, even the game folder?
Yeah.
How does that tie into game design?
It's about creating a cohesive and immersive experience from the moment a player interacts with your game.
Oh, interesting.
He uses the example of a Starship pilot game.
Okay.
Where the game folder is designed to look like the pilot's personal log.
Huh.
Or an RTS game where the folder resembles a military briefing.
So it's like setting the stage before the curtain even rises.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're already drawing the player into the world you've created.
This is really making me rethink everything I thought I knew about game design.
And that's just the beginning.
Wow.
Reactorcore's journey is a testament to the depth and richness of game design as a field.
Yeah.
It's not just about coming up with cool ideas. It's about understanding the underlying principles, building a solid foundation, and crafting an experience that resonates deeply with players.
I am very excited to hear more about this.
Yeah, me too.
Let's
let's dive back in. After a quick break.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
We'll be right back, everybody.
See you soon.
All right, so we're back. And I'm still thinking about how much more there is to game design than what we see on the surface. It's like a hidden world of systems and creative decisions.
Absolutely.
Before the break, we were talking about how Reactorcore expanded his view to include elements beyond the game itself.
Right.
Things like marketing, community engagement, even the game's packaging.
It's a lot to consider.
It's a lot to consider.
It is.
Right.
But it's about understanding that the player's experience doesn't start when they hit play.
Yeah. Yeah.
It begins the moment they first encounter the game.
So creating a unified experience right from the start.
Exactly.
Okay.
Think about a gardening game where the box is designed like a seed packet.
Oh.
Or an RTS game.
Okay.
With an install process that feels like a military briefing.
I see.
Yeah.
Setting the mood from the get-go.
Right away.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But let's go back to this idea of building a solid foundation.
Mm-hmm.
How does one actually go about doing that?
Right.
It sounds great in theory.
Yeah.
But where do you even begin?
It starts with asking the right questions.
Okay.
Like, what's the core idea of your game?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of experience do you want players to have?
Right.
What are the rules of this game world?
Yeah.
What are your limitations?
So defining the boundaries.
Yes.
Before you start filling in the details.
Precisely. It's like creating a blueprint.
Okay.
You need the structure before you add the furniture.
I can see how that would be important for larger studios.
Yeah.
But what about smaller indie developers who might not have a lot of resources?
Sure.
Isn't that a bit much to ask?
It might seem counterintuitive.
Okay.
But taking the time to build a solid foundation can actually save you time and resources down the road.
How so?
Imagine building a house without a plan. Mistakes happen, you redo things.
Yeah.
And the structure might not be as sound.
Okay, so it's about working smarter, not harder.
Exactly.
But this also means you need a deep understanding of game design principles, right?
Right, and that's where learning comes in.
Okay.
There are many ways to learn. Books, courses, even communities of game developers where you can learn from each other.
Right.
But the most effective way is by doing.
Learning by doing.
Yeah.
Good old trial and error.
That's how Reactorcore learned.
Okay.
Years of modding, experimenting, pushing the boundaries. And he even talks about procrastination as a form of learning.
And hold on.
Yeah.
Procrastination.
I know, right?
I thought that was the enemy of productivity?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Reactorcore believes that taking time to explore seemingly unrelated topics can actually make your understanding of game design richer.
Okay.
He mentioned spending hours researching engineering, logistics, science, even history and philosophy.
It's about making connections between different areas of knowledge then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Broadening your horizons and seeing the world with fresh eyes.
I like that.
Reactorcore says that studying real-world logistics systems helped him create a more believable resource management system for his game.
So inspiration can come from unexpected places.
It can.
It's not all just staring at a screen and coding.
Exactly. Game design involves creativity, problem-solving, storytelling, even understanding human psychology.
Right.
It's about creating experiences that truly engage players.
Yeah.
On multiple levels.
This all makes me think about those games that have really stuck with me over the years. They had something special.
Right.
Something that went beyond the surface.
Absolutely. And that's what Reactorcore is advocating for.
Okay.
A more thoughtful and holistic approach.
Right.
It's not just about making games.
Yeah.
It's about crafting experiences that resonate with players.
But how does that actually translate
Right.
into specific design choices?
Yeah.
How does building a solid foundation actually manifest in a game?
Let's take Reactorcore's experience with Cortex Command as an example.
Okay.
He talks about the importance of standardizing elements.
Okay.
Like explosions, fire, liquids, even character armor.
Why is standardization so important?
It ensures consistency and compatibility.
Okay.
Think of it like a universal language that all elements of the game can understand.
Okay.
This makes it easier to create new content, balance the game, and ensure everything works together smoothly.
So it's like creating a system where everything fits together.
Exactly. It's about establishing a framework that supports creativity and innovation without sacrificing coherence.
This reminds me of those games with complex systems where every action has consequences and it all feels interconnected.
That's the beauty of a well-designed game.
Yeah.
It feels like a living world where choices matter.
But creating such a system must be incredibly complex.
It can be.
Yeah.
But it starts by breaking down the game into its core components and figuring out how they interact.
So thinking like a game designer. Yeah. Considering all angles and possibilities.
Precisely. That's where creativity and problem solving come into play.
Right.
Finding elegant solutions that enhance the player experience and create a world that feels both believable and engaging.
This is making me realize just how much thought and effort
It is a lot.
Goes into designing a truly great game.
It is.
So not just about having fun ideas.
Right.
It's about understanding the principles and crafting something meaningful.
And that's what separates the truly exceptional games from the rest.
Right.
They're not just games. They're works of art.
Wow.
Carefully designed to transport players to new worlds and challenge them in unique ways.
So it's about pushing the boundaries
Absolutely.
of what a game can be.
And that's what makes game design such a fascinating and rewarding field.
Yeah.
It's a constant process of learning, experimenting, and pushing the limits of creativity.
This is making me want to revisit some of my favorite games with a new perspective.
Me too.
To see if I can understand the underlying design choices.
Yeah.
And appreciate the artistry behind them.
And that's the beauty of games.
Yeah.
They can be enjoyed on multiple levels.
Right.
You can enjoy them for their entertainment value. But you can also delve deeper and discover the intricate systems and creative decisions that make them special.
This has been incredibly insightful.
Oh, good.
We've covered so much ground already.
We have.
And I'm eager to hear more about Reactorcore's journey.
Well, there's still much to uncover.
Okay.
He delves into some fascinating details about how this approach actually plays out in game development.
This is really exciting.
Yeah, it is.
We'll be right back after a quick break to continue our deep dive into Reactorcore's insights.
Sounds good.
Stay tuned. Okay, so we're back.
We are?
And I'm ready to hear more about how Reactorcore's philosophy translates into actual game development.
Yeah.
It's one thing to talk about building a solid foundation, but what does that look like in practice?
So Reactorcore really dives into the nitty-gritty with this concept.
Okay.
He calls it standardization.
Standardization.
Yeah, it's about creating consistent building blocks for your game, kind of like a universal language that all the elements can understand.
Can you give me an example of what you mean?
Sure. Imagine Lego bricks.
Okay.
Every brick connects in a standardized way, right?
Right.
Reactorcore realized that applying this principle to game elements, things like explosions, fire effects, even how character armor works, makes development smoother and more efficient.
So it's like setting up a system where all the pieces fit together seamlessly.
Yeah.
From the smallest detail to the biggest feature.
Right.
That makes sense.
Right.
But how does this standardization actually help in the game design process?
It has a ton of benefits.
Okay, like what?
First, it makes creating new content much easier.
Okay.
Instead of reinventing the wheel every time, you have these predefined building blocks that you can combine and repurpose.
So it's like having a toolbox full of ready-made components.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That would certainly save a lot of time and effort.
Yeah.
Especially for smaller teams.
For sure.
But are there any other advantages besides efficiency?
Definitely, standardization also leads to greater consistency in the game's look and feel.
How so?
If every explosion uses the same basic framework, for example, players will have a more cohesive and immersive experience.
So it's not just about saving time.
Right.
It's about creating a more polished and unified player experience.
Exactly.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
It makes me think about how some games have this really distinctive style or atmosphere that's consistent throughout.
Yes.
Even across different levels or environments.
Right. And that's often a result of careful planning and standardization behind the scenes.
It's about creating a world that feels believable and internally consistent.
Yes.
Where every element contributes to the overall vision.
Exactly.
It sounds like this approach requires a lot of forethought and planning.
It does.
It's not something you can just stumble into, right?
Right. Reactorcore emphasizes the importance of establishing these standards early in the development process. Even before you start creating a lot of content.
So it's like laying the groundwork for a house before you start building the walls.
Exactly.
But wouldn't this approach limit creativity?
That's a great question.
If you're always working within these predefined boundaries, wouldn't it stifle innovation?
That's a common misconception.
Okay.
Actually, Reactorcore argues that having a solid foundation and clear standards actually enhances creativity.
Really?
Yeah. It's like having a set of rules for a game.
Okay.
The rules don't stifle creativity.
Right.
They provide a framework within which you can experiment and innovate.
So it's about channeling creativity, not restricting it.
Exactly.
That's an interesting perspective.
Yeah, it's like the difference between free-form jazz and a structured symphony.
Okay.
Both can be incredibly creative.
Right.
But they operate within different frameworks.
And in game design, having those frameworks allows developers to focus their energy on the aspects that truly matter.
Right.
Creating compelling gameplay, telling engaging stories, and building immersive worlds.
It's about working smarter, not harder.
I like that. This has been a really eye-opening conversation.
Oh, good.
I'm starting to see game design in a whole new light.
That's great to hear.
It's so much more than just coding and art.
It really is.
It's about understanding principles, building systems, and creating experiences that resonate with players.
And that's what makes it such a fascinating and rewarding field.
Yeah.
It's a blend of technical skill, creativity, and a deep understanding of human psychology.
It's about pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Exactly.
And creating something truly special.
Well said.
I think this deep dive has given our listeners a lot to think about.
I hope so.
What are some key takeaways you'd like them to remember?
First and foremost, remember that game design is a process of learning and growth.
Oh, okay.
Don't be afraid to experiment, to make mistakes, and to learn from others.
It's about embracing the journey, not just focusing on the destination.
Right.
Secondly, remember the importance of building a solid foundation for your game. Take the time to define your core mechanics. Your game world and your overall vision before you get bogged down in the details.
It's like laying the groundwork for a masterpiece.
And finally, don't be afraid to think outside the box.
Yes.
And draw inspiration from unexpected sources. Game design is a multidisciplinary field.
It is.
So be curious and explore ideas from other areas, like engineering, psychology, history, art, anything that sparks your imagination.
Exactly.
It's about connecting the dots and seeing the world with fresh eyes.
And with that, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive.
Well, this was fun.
It was.
I learned a lot.
Me too.
Hopefully our listeners have come away with a deeper understanding of the art and craft of game design.
I hope so too.
And who knows, maybe this conversation will inspire some future game developers out there. To create the next generation of groundbreaking games.
That would be awesome.
Until next time.
Yes.
Keep exploring. Keep learning.
Keep playing.
We'll see you.
See you next time.
Next time.